Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Tyrone back with Tech Life. And before I get this video started, I just want to let you guys know this is going to be a longer video. I just want to add some additional context to the videos. The video and the pictures that I left on my Instagram. Some of you have seen them, some of you have not. So I wanted to include them in this video and give you guys some more context. So the first thing I want to say, the whole notion that Neville Ray has been saying that he's on par with the big two, AT&T and Verizon. In my experience on this trip, that is absolutely not the case. I don't claim any bias towards any company. You guys know I don't have any scientific averages, or I don't deal with what RootMetrics does. This is just an average consumer testing the networks on the trip to Phoenix on Interstate 10 and then on Interstate 8 going towards San Diego. So on Interstate 10, T-Mobile performed decent. Not much more, not much better. If you want to look at it in, hey, they've had less to begin with and where they are now, I guess you can look at it that way. So for that, I guess the network was decent. They do have less money, they invest less money, so what they have done with the network is incredible, I guess you can say. But when Neville and John and those guys come out and say that they're on par with AT&T and Verizon, that just makes it look negative in my opinion. So on Interstate 10 to begin the trip, going towards Deming and then heading into Arizona, T-Mobile did decent. There was no service drops in those areas, but the network wasn't up to par in speed. Now, I was traveling with other passengers and they don't know that I'm into the tech and that I'm into the networks, because I wanted to hear what they would say from their experience and how they see the networks. So we had Boost Mobile and the rest had T-Mobile, and me, I had AT&T and T-Mobile with me. Mind you, I traveled that same exact stretch in 2017 using Verizon. So in the areas where T-Mobile performed less on speed but still had LTE service, the people that I was riding with, they called it dead zone. So although there was service, the phone just didn't work, so they recognized it as a dead zone. So we had an auxiliary cord passing around, people playing music, and it was just pretty bad on T-Mobile to stream anything. You had to buffer and then play, pause, you know, the whole thing. It was just a bad experience on the streaming with T-Mobile going down to 10. But overall, it did perform decent if you look at it from a standpoint that T-Mobile had so little to work with, and what they did with it, I guess that makes it sort of incredible with what they have done. But AT&T far outperformed them. Now, AT&T did have some hiccups, of course. They had some drops to HSPA, which were very, very little and very short. So it was HSPA and then LTE kicked right in. On the Interstate 10, no service drops at all with them. Now, I'm not saying they're perfect, as you will see later on in the video, but it performed a lot better on Interstate 10 compared to T-Mobile. So in this picture here, you're seeing T-Mobile on the left with no service. Then top right, you're seeing it on edge using USA comment. And then at the bottom, again, no service. So, and then this one, I believe, if I can see correctly, it may be the Telcel roaming. So on Interstate 8, T-Mobile was pretty bad. Honestly, at the very beginning of Interstate 8, Boost Mobile outperformed T-Mobile in terms of LTE. Now, Boost Mobile, of course, is not an accurate representation of Sprint because it does take lower priority. But Boost had better service early on Interstate 8 comparing it to T-Mobile. T-Mobile was roaming, no service. Then getting closer to Yuma, T-Mobile picked up again. But in Yuma, I don't know, for some reason, T-Mobile didn't work that great in Yuma, Arizona. It was pretty bad. We had to stop at an O'Reilly's in an AutoZone, and we stopped at a gas station there, and T-Mobile just didn't work too well at all. So Yuma, Arizona, I couldn't recommend T-Mobile there at all. AT&T did much better in Yuma, Arizona. So once we traveled outside of Yuma, that's where T-Mobile got even a bit worse, in my opinion. They picked up a bit outside of Yuma, but getting closer into crossing the state line over to California, this is where AT&T got better. They pretty much after Yuma, everything was 5GE for AT&T the whole way into San Diego. Now, again, no bias, but AT&T just invested more, and it's just a better service along that stretch. There's just no way around, no sugarcoating, and that was just the case. AT&T was 5GE after Yuma the whole way, much better service. And as you will see, I even got messages along the way, and this was everybody else, that when T-Mobile dropped to no service, they said, hey, you're welcome to Mexico. So we were connecting to Telcel on Interstate 8 in California. Now, some people have said that, that should be the carrier's fault in Mexico for leaking over. But then again, I mean, if T-Mobile has no service, the phone is going to try to connect to something. And that was the closest, I guess, signal that the phone was able to receive, to a point where T-Mobile even sent out a text message saying, welcome to Mexico, you're covered. So that is the only good thing from that if we pulled any sort of internet usage, that T-Mobile would have covered it. But here on the left side, you see some of the speed tests. Now, not too bad, but not the best, and not anywhere close to what AT&T was performing like along that stretch. I mean, as you can see, the 0.03 to 0.47, that, those were the times where the music was just buffering. It was play, pause, play, pause. It was just pretty bad. So still a lot of work for T-Mobile to catch up to the big two in terms of the coverage and all of the things that Neville Ray has been claiming for so long. They're using cell sites that are far spaced apart along the coverage, and they're pushing the 700 and 600 megahertz as far as it could possibly go. But in that mountain terrain, when you get closer to that California area, that just doesn't work. You got to put cell sites up. You have to put cell sites up, and T-Mobile just not quite there yet, comparing that to AT&T now. Verizon on that same stretch 2 years ago already, LTE the whole way, no hiccups. So I didn't have Verizon on this trip, but I got to give it to Verizon. They are the best along that Interstate 10 and the Interstate 8. Like I said, AT&T did struggle a bit around Gilbert Bend on Interstate 8. That was a complete dead spot for AT&T. Like, I'm not talking about them having signal and the data not working. They just had no service that whole way. That was about, I want to say, about a 15-mile stretch where AT&T had literally no service. So that was a negative part for AT&T. But like I said, 2 years ago, I traveled that same exact stretch with Verizon, and Verizon had LTE the whole way. I think they had maybe 2 spots where it dropped to 3G for like a few seconds, but then it picked right back up. So, and I'm sure that's only gotten better now with Verizon. So I would have to say Verizon is the best along that stretch in terms of coverage. But AT&T is performing well, besides that one stretch that I told you guys about, and then a few drops to HSPA. Now, that's one thing that T-Mobile didn't have. T-Mobile had no drops to HSPA. It was either roaming, no service, or it was their LTE network. So I'm thinking, AT&T needs to make a few tweaks here and there to get that stretch onto all LTE without it dropping the HSPA. But in the midst of them being in the middle of a huge rollout with FirstNet, it could be that they were working on some towers. I did see the towers that were closer to the interstates. I did see people working on them. So that could definitely be the case. But like I said, T-Mobile still has a long way to go in terms of matching the big two on coverage toe to toe. They're close. They're better. Overall, they're better than what Sprint and Boost Mobile are presenting in terms of coverage. And also, I noticed, I don't know why it's like this, but Boost Mobile had no access to T-Mobile's roaming. So when there was no service, Boost Mobile was on 1X the whole time. So either it was either the LTE from Sprint or it was nothing with Boost Mobile. So I just wanted to throw that in there. Like I said, this is going to be a longer video. I just wanted to give you guys a lot more context on this trip. So next, so this was in downtown San Diego. San Diego is the first market. Now, of course, San Diego is big. I didn't cover the whole area, but most places that I went to, it was 100% 5GE. There was no drops to LTE whatsoever in that area. So this was downtown. So we're talking North Park, Mission Beach, Pacific Beach, Mission Valley Mall, all that where I traveled to was all, the hotel circle, it was all 5GE. There was no LTE whatsoever. As soon as you crossed Yuma, hitting, going further down on Interstate 8, getting into California, everything there was 5GE. There was no LTE. Now, of course, we all know it's not real 5G. It's AT&T's version of 5GE, LTE Advanced. But it does let you know that they have made the upgrades and added the components necessary to make that happen. So 9 times out of 10, you are going to get faster speeds using the 5GE signal compared to their LTE signal. And that was just the case in downtown San Diego. Completely outperformed T-Mobile. Lots of those small cell C-RANs that you see. These were within, like, across the street from each other. So some of those I saw Verizon on the sticker, some I saw AT&T, but none I saw T-Mobile. So T-Mobile did have signal there. By the way, just to throw that in there, very hard to track towers in San Diego. They're disguised. I mean, I was impressed. I was like, damn, these towers are so disguised. I saw very few sites that I saw, but they have them disguised. That must be something that the city has made the carriers do, because I could hardly see any cell sites there. But downtown, the small cells, I was able to spot them. Now, I don't know which carrier it belongs to per se, but it presented me with 5 bars in front of it, so I just took a picture. But I got decent speeds everywhere with AT&T. The bars, some of the bars in downtown San Diego are like 2 stories, but it's the first floor, and then you go underground to another bar, and AT&T no service drops, no nothing, performed well. With T-Mobile, I ran into issues indoors, downstairs. Boost, no service. T-Mobile 1 bar doing like 0.03 megabits per second. So it just didn't work as properly as anything I've seen with AT&T. And then 2 years ago, I was in that same downtown area with Verizon, and Verizon just performed crazy back then, and I'm sure it's only gotten better. So it seems like the dominant carriers there are, with lots of capacity to fill, are Verizon and AT&T. Now, what the individual statistics look like, I'd have to do some more research and potentially take Verizon with me there next time. But AT&T performed crazy good in San Diego and in Phoenix as well. AT&T has a lot of capacity to fill in both of those markets. Now, I don't know if that means that their market share is just low in those areas, but they have a huge amount of capacity to fill. In Phoenix, every speed test I ran with AT&T was over 150, easy. Most over 100. I hardly saw a speed test under 100 megabits per second there. And mind you that there's still a good chunk of the city that's not 5GE. I was mostly in the Scottsdale Gilbert area, and there was no 5GE. But of course, in other parts of Phoenix, I did see 5GE downtown, around the Mesa area. So they're mostly they're catching up to being 100% 5GE. But I can confidently say that San Diego is 100% 5GE anywhere. I mean, I traveled to the hotel circle, the beaches, like I said, downtown. It was all 5GE, no questions about it. So here's also another comparison. There, I was at the Mission Valley Outlet Mall in San Diego, and both T-Mobile and AT&T were on the outdoor DAS system. So as you can see, speeds are very comparable there. Both performed great at the mall. It seemed like a very busy mall. There was a Target there too as well. And indoor and outdoors, the carriers performed well. So overall, it was a pretty good trip. Like I said, T-Mobile not up to par yet. You can, like I said, you can make the case it's a cheaper plan. It's a better promotion. They've done more with less. You could say all that, but overall, the words that Neville and John have used in the marketing and on the earnings calls, and just saying, hey, we are now covering 311 million people, it's just not the case. You know, I just got to say it. Now, the merger is still up in the air. It's still pending, but T-Mobile may also need the merger just as bad as Sprint. This weekend, this trip was just an eye-opener on how potentially far they are still behind on catching the big two with the bigger investments that they have been making for years over T-Mobile and Sprint. So let me know in the comment section down below. Maybe you're from Phoenix or you're from San Diego. You've traveled those stretches. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you've had that same experience. Like I said, the roaming, the no service for T-Mobile was unacceptable in my opinion, based on the words that the big executives are using. But maybe you see it otherwise. So definitely stay tuned to the channel. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. Also hit the notification bell so you're notified when I upload content like this. Make sure to follow my social media outlets for more updates. And this is Tyrone with Tech Life, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.